Do you know what's changed in the last 6 hours? Nothing.
You are really ready to die for this man.
You don't think you're coming back?
I'm scared, Trent.
So am I.
If she has to, she'll kill every one of us. She's in love.
Believe it.
Everything that has a beginning has an end.
Rated R starts Wednesday, November 5th.
Yeah, everything that has a beginning should have an end, and that should have been the first Matrix movie, because, let's be honest, there was no reason why we needed Matrix sequels. I mean, the first film wrapped it up in a nice film, and yeah, the Matrix Reloaded had some cool stuff in it too, but by this point in the series, you started to realize that this was the reason why they should not have made this a trilogy. In the explosive final chapter of the Matrix trilogy, Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity battle to defend Zion, the last real-world city, against the onslaught of the machines that have enslaved the human race. And now as Neo learns more about his heroic powers, including the ability to see the codes of things and the people, he faces the consequences of the choices made in the Matrix Reloaded. Not much more I can say about this one, except it's garbage. This is 100% freaking garbage. There is no reason for this to become a trilogy, and it's perfectly clear that the Wachowskis had no idea how to make this a proper trilogy. They saw how successful the first movie was, and Warner Brothers wanted more. They didn't have an idea for a trilogy, so they just said, screw it, just put some stuff on the wall and we'll see what happens. And like I said, The Matrix Reloaded at least had some redeemable qualities to it, the car chase scene, but as a sequel. But this is just a colossal misfire on so many levels, right down to the ending, serving no purpose whatsoever. There's nothing about this film that serves as an end to a great adventure. This isn't like Back to the Future Part 3, which was the last time they did a back-to-back sequel where they were wrapping everything up. No more movies after this. No, not in this movie. No. By the end of this, it was just like, thank God I don't have to deal with this anymore. And then nearly 20 years later, you get another movie, and that's just as bad too. Like, there's literally no reason to continue this series after the first movie. There's been nothing redeemable as far as a full film goes with any of these movies. Yeah, like I said, Reloaded had some cool stuff in it, and Revolution, and this one does have one scene in particular, the scene where the beginning of the final conflict with with Neo and Agent Smith, like when they're in the rain and all that. That was a cool scene. I'll give it that. But other than that, though, this thing can't even be decent. This is supposed to be the end of a trilogy, and there is nothing about this ending that feels serviceable, that feels like they want to wrap this up. It's clearly a ruse to make you be convinced that this was supposed to be the plan all along, that this was supposed to open the door up here. This is the equivalent of The Sopranos ending on a black screen, but The Sopranos was at least hoping that a movie was going to get made so they can wrap that up, but of course James Gandolfini died, and that pretty much changed everything there. This is bad on a number of levels, because they make the next movie, and it answers nothing of value whatsoever. Like, this can't even be decent. It has its head so far it's up its own ass, thinking that it's this high and mighty and god-tier adventure that everybody has been waiting for. Like, this is supposed to be the cinematic opus of our time, and they've done nothing past the first movie that is remotely worth being a trilogy. You should have stopped after the first film, and that's it. That should have been the end of this, but nope. This is a massive dumpster fire on so many levels. Avoid it like the plague. Avoid these sequels like the plague. And, not surprisingly, the film did very poorly to at least close the door for the trilogy at that point. And then, like I said, they tried to continue it on afterward with the fourth film. And that sucks, too. And, hey, we're getting another one, too, with the guy who directed it with Drew Goddard. Yeah, good director. Have no reason to believe that movie's going to change anything that I've said before. Like, this first film should have been just one film, and that's it. Plain and simple. So that's The Matrix Revolutions, the film that everyone thought at Warner Brothers that everyone was going to be talking about. And then we'll throw this other movie out there on the same weekend, too. Clearly it won't have the lasting legacy that The Matrix Revolutions will. That's Will Ferrell and Elf.
Put in a good word with the big man. David starts Friday, November 7th.
As you can see, now we're starting to get into some of the good stuff that came out this weekend, and we have one of the two Christmas movies that went on to become classics in their own rights. And it's interesting to think about Elf for a second here, because you look at the budget, $33 million doesn't seem like it's that much that this film can't make it back on. I mean, especially when you also consider that, you know, it's a Christmas movie, and the next couple of weeks, everyone's going to be rushing out to the theaters to see the newest big family film, and there was a lot of risk with this particular film, specifically with the leading star, Will Ferrell. It was his first big film as the leading man after leaving Saturday Night Live for 7 years and having his breakout role earlier in the year in the comedy Old School, where he had a supporting role. But here, it's his puppy right here. He's the leading guy on there. He's all over the posters. He's the main guy on the main credits. So there was a lot of high expectations for him to not only succeed with this film, but, you know, prove that, hey, he's got a future in film. And sure enough, he went on to have a very successful film career starting with this. I mean, there was a point between 2003 and 2007 where he really was a top draw at the box office. Maybe even longer than that, too, 2008, because I keep forgetting that, you know, Semi-Pro was not a big hit, but Step Brothers was a big hit, although I do approve of Semi-Pro more than Step Brothers. Probably one of the few things I could say, probably one of the few controversies about Will Ferrell's movies in general. But we'll eventually get to those ones when we get to 2008, of course. But the story here is that you have Will Ferrell as Buddy, a human raised by Santa's elves who learns about his origins and heads to New York City to meet his biological father, played by James Caan. And, you know, James Caan is not in the Christmas spirit, and, of course, Will Ferrell is filled with the Christmas spirit. He ends up falling in love with Zooey Deschanel. James Caan's wife is Mary Steenburgen. Santa's played by Ed Asner, and Bob Newhart is his elf father. And this is directed by Jon Favreau, and this was also a gamble for him, because this is his first time tackling a big project like this after Swingers and Made, and the results have spoken for themselves. Not only did this film become a massive hit when it came out, it has become a Christmas classic in many, many ways, spawning musicals, which actually led to a stop-motion animated spin-off movie on NBC a couple years ago, which that's a really underrated movie. It has Jim Parsons as the voice of Buddy in there. Highly recommend checking that out, especially if you love the original Elf. And at times, Elf can seem like it may go over the edge because the character can be annoying at times, but he's a kid at heart. I mean, this is a guy that has lived his entire life in the North Pole. He doesn't know how most humans act in the real world. And the film does a good job of keeping the tones, keeping it at an even pace where Will Ferrell isn't going over the top insane for no particular reason. He's doing it because he doesn't know any better. He's been stuck in a place where he could be a kid for most of his life, and now he's got to come to the real world and realize that he has to become an adult. And I love the way that the film translates that. And also, James Caan, this curmudgeon, has to learn to find the kid in himself again. And it's a really good movie. It's a fun film overall. The comedy can be really funny, and there's a good cast involved in here. And it was my introduction to Zooey Deschanel, who I've always been a fan of. Not only is she a good actress, but the girl can sing. I mean, this is a film where you realize this is why Zooey Deschanel is such a great actress, a great personality in general, because she's a great actress. She can sing and that's always great when you can both act and sing really well. And case in point here, but her chemistry with Will Ferrell works well enough that the film really does have that sentimentation as a Christmas classic. And yeah, in a time when, you know, there wasn't like, you know, Christmas, you know, it's very hard to get a Christmas classic of this caliber anymore. We've had movies where they received well, have had lasting legacies throughout television over the last couple of years, including, you know, like the criminally underrated Arthur Christmas. Then there's been times when they tried to make hits out of his Christmas classics and hasn't worked out quite well, but you still see him playing on TV every year, like Fred Claus, Four Christmases, Christmas with the Cranks. But this is one where, in the last 20 years, this is the one that has been played on TV the most. It's the one that's been hailed as one of the great Christmas movies of all time. And it's kind of hard not to see why. It does everything right. It never goes over the boundaries where it can get really annoying really fast. It's a perfectly even balanced film. I mean, what more can I say, man? Elf is a classic film. I can't recommend it enough. Speaking of Christmas classics, let's go ahead and take a look at the last one we have here, which is a Christmas classic in its own right, and that is Love Actually.
The holiday season. It's the perfect time of year to find the one you love.
Christmas is time to do something about it.
Like what?
And tell them exactly how you feel.
You've got nothing to lose, and you'll always regret it if you don't.
Don't let the holidays go by without Love, Actually. Rated R.
I mean, a movie where just it feels like a chick flick. It feels like a film that nobody outside of the female target audience could really get into. But it's a film that appeals to everybody. I mean, this is a film that is just so perfectly handled in the way that it does tell the story. You essentially have a series of little, and it's kind of like an anthology, sort of, but you have a cast that includes some of the biggest names around. I mean, let me just read the names off of here. Hugh Grant, Liam Neeson, Colin Firth, Laura Linney, Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Keira Knightley, Martine McCutcheon, Bill Nighy, Rowan Atkinson. That's just some of the names on here. There's names on here that I didn't even mention that are notable names, like Chiwetel Ejiofor, Andrew Lincoln, why can't I remember his name from The Walking Dead? Ah, God. I don't want to have to look it up. I don't want to have to look it up. Come on. It's gonna come in there, damn it. Rick Grimes. Good Lord. I knew the name. I just couldn't remember it. Yeah, he's in here too. Who else is in here? Liam Neeson's son, the girl that she falls in love with is actually Olivia Olsen from Phineas and Ferb. But you also have you've got January Jones, Alicia Cuthbert, Ivana Milcevic, Shannon Elizabeth, Martin Freeman. Did I mention Rowan Atkinson? No, I didn't. Rowan Atkinson's in here, too. He doesn't have a whole lot to do, but his one scene is memorable. Rodrigo Santoro, Xerxes from 300 is in here. Thomas Sangster, Liam Neeson's kid. You've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He's Ferb on Phineas and Ferb. Like, he's also in Game of Thrones. He's in the Maze Runner movie. He's Billy Bob Thornton. There's just a phenomenal cast involved in this movie. I haven't even gotten to the actual plot of the film, which, like I said, it's an anthology film, kind of, where you delve into different aspects of love as shown through 10 separate stories, including a variety of individuals, many of them who are interlinked as the plot progresses. It begins 5 weeks before Christmas, as it's played out in a weekly countdown until the holiday, followed by an epilogue that takes place in the new year. And you could say that this kind of helped to launch the ensemble romantic comedies that led us to the lesser ones, like the Gary Marshall ones, Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, Mother's Day, but unlike those pieces of shit, this is actually a smartly written, well-acted, and overall very romantic comedy. I mean, the ensemble cast in here just works so well together. All the chemistries and the stories that they have here are all perfectly handled very well. They don't fall into the typical romantic comedy cliches, and when they do, it's written very well. And that's what you get when you have a guy like Richard Curtis involved here. This is the guy that made great stuff like Four Weddings and a Funeral, Bridget Jones's Diary, Notting Hill. This is a film that is just smartly written, well made, well acted, very believable. It could have easily been a disappointment. It could have easily been a film that just falls apart right from the get-go because there's just too many people getting involved in here. But when you have a talented writer like Richard Curtis, he keeps the chemistries all together. He keeps the balance together. It never feels like one story is going overboard. Everything just seems perfectly fit. And you end up being very satisfied with what you see in the film. It's a beautifully made film. It's a great movie you watch at Christmas time. Even at Valentine's Day, people watch it at Valentine's Day. I mean, yeah, I could even see that. Like, it's a film that really, it's made specifically for Christmas time, but you could watch it at any point in the year, and you would find so much value to it, regardless of what time of the year you watch it. I mean, what can I say? Hugh Grant said it best in the beginning of the film. Love Actually is all around, and all around, Love Actually is a really damn good movie. I don't think I need to say much more about it. Give it a chance.
As a form, I would say that it should have turned back weeks ago. It's leadership they want. Strength. Find out within yourself, and you will earn their respect. Moving forward, you will take command of the ship.
In April of 1805, during the Napoleonic Wars, HMS Surprise, a British frigate, is under the command of Captain Jack Aubrey, played by Russell Crowe. Aubrey and the Surprise's current orders are to track and capture or destroy a French privateer named Acheron. The Acheron is currently in the Atlantic off South America, heading towards the Pacific in order to extend Napoleon's reach of the waves. The task will be a difficult one, as Aubrey quickly learns in an initial battle with the Acheron that is a bigger, faster ship than the Surprise, which puts the Surprise at a disadvantage. Aubrey's single-mindedness in this seemingly impossible pursuit puts him at odds with the Surprise's doctor and naturalist, Stephen Metrin, who is also Aubrey's most trusted advisor on board and closest friend. Facing other internal obstacles which have resulted in what they consider to be a string of bad luck, Aubrey ultimately uses Metrin's scientific exploits to figure out a way to achieve his and the ship's seemingly impossible goal. And this was a highly ambitious film, based off the novels by Patrick O'Brien, and the head of Fox at the time, Tom Rothman, who now runs Sony, really was wanting this to be a personal passion project, and really went out to Peter Weir to direct it. And Peter Weir's a great director. He's made a lot of great movies, The Truman Show, Witness, Gallipoli, so it makes sense to bring him in there. Plus, these type of films were coming back into form, especially with Pirates of the Caribbean being as successful as they were. So there was a lot of high ambitions to this. A big budget went into this, and it didn't necessarily bomb, but it didn't really perform as well as I think they wanted it to. I mean, this was a film that I think a lot of people were expecting a lot more from in terms of, you know, the financial success, but it only made $72 million more than what it cost to make. It cost like $150 million, only bought in like $212 million in the long run. But that doesn't mean the movie is bad. It's a very ambitious film, and it's epic and sweeping at times. It is it's a real damn good movie. It reminds me a lot of In the Heart of the Sea, which is another criminally underrated movie that's very much like this, which was directed by Ron Howard. It has Chris Hemsworth and a pre-Spider-Man Tom Holland among the cast in there. And you've got Paul Bettany in here, the Vision, pre-Vision, of course, and then Russell Crowe, who was also Superman's dad. You can tell I'm bringing up a lot of comic book movies here, but this is the first time these two worked together since A Beautiful Mind, Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany. And in addition to them, you also have a cast that includes James D'Arcy, Richard McCabe, who else is in here? Billy Boyd. I think that's the only big names that they have in here, but there's a lot of great actors involved in here in general. John Cawley, one of the writers at Happy Feet, wrote this. I mean, everything is working towards the film's advantage, and the film itself is an impressively put together movie. From the visual aspects, from the technical aspects, to the story aspects, it really does keep you invested all the way through. I just don't know if people really were invested in wanting to see this movie in general, but I would have liked to have seen this on the big screen. And it did get some really good reviews in general. It was nominated for several Oscars, got 10 nominations for Best Picture and Best Director, and won Best Cinematography and Best Sound Editing. So there is a lot here to admire about the film in general. It's overall really damn good. It's a really damn good, impressive feat. I don't think it really accomplished everything it wanted to do, because I feel like they wanted to start this off as a series of films, maybe try to be like their own Pirates of the Caribbean. But there is a prequel reportedly in the works, so maybe this is something they'll come back to. And it's been in development for a couple of years now, so I don't know for certain if it's actually going to get made. But I honestly would like to see more of these stories get made into a movie. These books seem like they have a lot of ambition to them, and it really would look great on the big screen. And you can just look on here, the practical effort that they put into this. They do a very good job of handling it here. The storytelling is very good. The characters are very good, interesting to watch. Just an incredible film, man. One that I do recommend checking out. Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. Speaking of movies that underperform, this is probably the biggest underperformer of the week, and that is, of course, Looney Tunes Back in Action. But does that mean the movie itself was bad? Let's take a look.
Somewhere in the dark underworld, there is a plan. A plan to rule mankind. Now, the world's most elite organization must step forward to search the globe for evil, scour the continents for danger, and what they discover will turn the world upside down. No!
Point him around.
Looney Tunes back in action. A rabbit, a duck, a girl, a boy.
You, him, her, them.
And the evil head of the Acme Corporation who's determined to take over the world.
We must capture this son of a spy, and we must locate the diamond and use its power for our own diabolical ends. How do you like that, Mr. Slap Yourself on Your Own Face?
Dynamite! Welcome to my world.
Looney Tunes back in action.
Now, Dad's funny.
Exploding into theaters November 14th.
Short answer, no. Long answer, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the plot, though. You have a movie that parodies action and spy film conventions. There's a little bit of sci-fi in here, though, where you have Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, played by Joe Lasky, as they become intertwined with a plot by the Acme chairman, played by Steve Martin, to transform the world's population into subservient monkeys using the Blue Monkey Diamond. They accompany aspiring stuntman DJ Drake, played by Brendan Fraser, and Warner Brothers executive Kate Houghton, played by Jenna Elfman, on their journey to thwart the chairman's plan, which doubles as a mission to rescue the former's adopted father, Damian Drake, played by Timothy Dalton. This was a film that was the result of many attempts to try to develop a sequel to Space Jam. There was actually a direct sequel called Spy Jam, which was intended to star Jackie Chan in the leading role, but Joe Dante, out of a personal dislike of Space Jam, developed the project to more closely represent the personality of the Looney Tunes characters, with Eric Goldberg from Disney serving as the animation director. However, Dante reportedly had no creative control on the project, and the final film became different than what he intended it to be. And the film didn't do badly with critics in general. In fact, the film was well promoted, like Space Jam was. I mean, there was a lot of commercials on TV for it. Sprint had a big commercial with their mascot at the time. I mean, the film should have been a big hit, but unfortunately, it ended up being a massive bomb at the box office, grossing only $68 million over the $80 million budget it had, which is weird because not only did the movie get better reviews than Space Jam, but the movie is often seen as the better live-action animated Looney Tunes hybrid than Space Jam was. Even I would say, in terms of which movie I thought was better in general, that one was, I would say this one. But even though I still like Space Jam a lot, but, well, what happened? Like, why did the film not do so well? Well, let's look at the schedule that they had to work with here. You put it out in mid-November because Space Jam was a success in this period 7 years prior. But the big thing was that the film was literally sandwiched in between two bigger family films, two more highly anticipated family films, if you will, including the much bigger and more successful Elf by Warner Brothers, which actually was the #1 movie this weekend, and then the shitfest that was The Cat in the Hat. And this movie lost to The Cat in the Hat. We'll get to The Cat in the Hat next week, but I think you all know how bad that movie is. But not only that, Warner Brothers was trying to start a revitalized franchise of Looney Tunes media and products, starting with this. There was a lot of new shorts in the works, actually one that premiered in front of this when it came out, and it was also a Duck Dodgers TV series commissioned to tie in with the show, but the box office failure of the film pushed Warner Brothers to desperately attempt to rebrand the Looney Tunes, and we got the terrible series that was Lunatics Unleashed. And essentially, Back in Action was the official final straw for Warner Brothers' animation department, which was shut down and then was rejuvenated a couple years later with the success of Happy Feet. So with the movie losing a ton of money at the box office, does Looney Tunes Back in Action really deserve that distinction of being a straight-up bomb? And I said, no, I think it's easily the better-made movie of the two films. And for one thing, it seems that Joe Dante has a clearer, more idea of what he could do with the Looney Tunes than somebody like Joe Pytka did. I mean, this is clearly showing that he's a fan of the Looney Tunes, knows exactly what can be done with the characters with an actual story, not to be forced to make a movie that's clearly about the money that Space Jam did. And the casting here just works better. You've got all these great voice actors in here, including specifically Joe Alasky, doing a fantastic job replacing the classic Looney Tunes characters, recreating them with this near-pitch perfect impression of Mel Blanc's characters, the voices that he brought into it. And Brendan Fraser, Jenna Elfman, they work together well on screens. I mean, it's probably the best adventure film Fraser had been attached himself to. You know, stuff like, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Mummy 3, Inkheart, Furry Vengeance. When you think about it, this probably is the best adventure film he's been attached to. Steve Martin's surprisingly hilarious, too, as the bad guy in this. I mean, he really plays the over-the-top bad guy in here really well. It's a criminally underrated performance in general. You've also got Joan Cusack, Timothy Dalton, Heather Locklear. There's a lot of creative and funny moments in here. The painting jumping scene is complete brilliance. It's an incredibly inventive scene with these different animation styles. It feels like you're watching a modern-day Looney Tunes short in terms of how creative and funny it can be. I mean, and also it has probably the best overall thrashing of the live-action Scooby-Doo movie you ever see, with Matthew Lillard being criticized by Scooby and Shaggy, once again played by Casey Kasem and Frank Welker, and basically saying, you better be better than me in the sequel, or I'm coming after you. And look what happened to Matthew Lillard. He became the official voice of Shaggy not too long after that. If the film has any big flaws to it, the story is a little weak and a little too predictable, especially when they try to throw in this last-ditch effort to turn it into, well, I mean, it is pretty much a spy film, but in the end, it feels really pointless. I mean, the visual effects can look dated at times. There's a sequence where, Fraser and Elfman get trapped with a CGI dog robot blocking the way, and it looks so fake. It makes Dino from the two live-action Flintstones movies look more realistic. And, yeah, the second Dino from the Flintstones movie was not, it was the second Flintstones movie, but that looked much better than this did. And, yeah, but despite all that, Looney Tunes Back in Action clearly was made by people who knew what the Looney Tunes were capable of. It's a better, much more competently made film than Space Jam was, but in terms of which film had the lasting impact that worked better, Space Jam. I mean, yeah, Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny. I mean, it was perfect for the time period. And like I said, it's not a great film, but it's still one of my guilty pleasure movies. But this is definitely the much better film in terms of like how they represent these characters, a better overall feel of what they were trying to accomplish here. It definitely deserves to garner a much more significant cult following because it really is not a bad movie by any means. And it's definitely worth it. I mean, especially now that with Warner Brothers, the way they're treating the Looney Tunes characters now, I mean, this is a film that definitely deserves a lot more attention than it's been getting, and I'm glad to see that the appreciation for it has grown over the years. So, at least I know that the appreciation for this is slowly but surely gaining momentum. The film is getting the proper reappraisal that it definitely deserves. But, just bad timing to release this in the November that they had here, and yeah, Space Jam was successful around this time period too, but at the same time, you didn't have these movies that were obviously going to have much more of a lasting impact, whether they were good or not. But like I said, we'll get to Cat in the Hat next week. But let's go ahead, before we wrap this up, take a look at the last movie that came out this week in the documentary Tupac Resurrection.
My life, if I was with the big, different people on November 14th, I just wanted to be like an angel for God. The truth. I'm doing it for the kid that really lives a thug life and feels like it's hopeless. In this cold world. This is my story. I was there for the whole thing. Tupac Resurrection, directed by Lauren Lazen, featuring music by Tupac Shakur, The Notorious B.I.G., 50 Cent, and Eminem. Available on Amaru Interscope Records. Rated R.
It's funny how the Notorious B.I.G. is on the soundtrack for this, even though this is pretty much a one-sided tribute to Tupac Shakur, who was, of course, murdered in 1996, so about 7 years after before this documentary came out. And, you have him detailing his childhood, from growing up with a mother addicted to crack to being taken care of by drug dealers on the streets, as well as the type of jobs he had to do to get money. He also talks about his love for poetry, his friendship with Jada Pinkett, what his lyrics mean, about the negative resentment the media had on him. The documentary then details his shooting, his reaction to getting shot, his paranoia about getting shot, and ultimately his death. The documentary ends with Tupac coming to terms with his life and his past, understanding the wrongs that he's done, and also giving a monologue about the stereotypes of black men, telling blacks to not give in to stereotypes and to control themselves. And it also shows the impact Tupac had on the entire world, which is interesting because, again, going back to Notorious B.I.G., he's the one that's had the movie made about the movie biography made about him, which was Notorious, which is not a bad movie, but I'm actually kind of surprised nobody's tackled Tupac Shakur in a biopic yet. But then again, with the recent trend of biopics like Bohemian Rhapsody and Whitney Houston and Bob Marley, I don't know if that's probably the best idea to like it, because the biggest problem with the biopics nowadays is that they're too safe and marketable. They want them, and they're made by people within the families of the people they're talking about. So we don't get to really cover like the more darker elements of their lives, and just like that's a key part of those movies in general that you need to have in there. And there are ways to work around it. I've talked about it in other videos before, so if you want to go check those out, they're out there. They're out there on this channel and also on the Reviewing Network Live too. But in terms of what this documentary does, I think it's a very engaging documentary that really takes a lot of like archival footage from Tupac's life and puts it together in a story that really does feel like the guy is still alive and he was really behind this all along. But no, it's archival footage put together, and it makes for a pretty entertaining documentary in general. It was actually got nominated for an Oscar about 2 years later at the Academy Awards for Best Documentary Feature. Did not win, but that just shows you how good this really was. I mean, it really is an engaging sit-down to watch. Even if you're not a big Tupac Shakur fan, you could still watch it and just see that, yeah, the guy did a lot of bad stuff in his life, but he knows, but the movie knows that that's not really all about him. Like, he's not, like, he can be a good person, and it shows in this, and it shows in here. Like, in the end, he's trying, like what that monologue was talking about, you know, not giving it to stereotypes and to control themselves, and showing how much his impact still holds to this very day. I mean, it still holds up 30 years after his death. I mean, this guy still has a lasting legacy, and it shows in this documentary. It just shows that, hey, this guy is a legend, and it shows in a number of different ways. I mean, the guy had a potential to be a great actor. We saw it in films like Juice and Poetic Justice, but unfortunately, life came to an end for him too soon. And you know, this is a great documentary that really shows what the real Tupac Shakur really is. And I think it's a very entertaining documentary. It's a really good film. I highly recommend checking it out. Like I said, even if you're not the biggest Tupac fan, you can still find a lot to get a lot of value of in this. I do recommend it. Tupac Resurrection.
Hi, Mrs. Kwan. Thanks for babysitting on such short notice. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Conrad, Sally, remember the rules. No playing ball in the house, no fighting, no answering the phone, city morgue, and absolutely no one sets foot in the living room or else. Hit me!
This holiday season,
What's that?
Universal Pictures, DreamWorks Pictures, and Imagine Entertainment invite you to the ultimate house party.
Let's get this party started.
Brian Grazer, the producer of The Grinch. Mike Myers.
This cat is currently in violation of 17 of your mother's rules. 18!
The Cat in the Hat.
Homina. Who is this?
That's my mom.
Awkward.
And just when you think that trailer isn't bad enough, you should see what the international trailer for this movie looked like. And, needless to say, it's pretty much nightmare fuel.
next year, you can finally... Let's talk about good oral hygiene. Lasso went to see a professional dentist, and now his teeth are in perfect condition. You bet they are. Lasso went to see a professional dentist. 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 Lasso went to see a professional dentist.
What the hell was that? No, seriously, what the hell was that supposed to be? Like, does that really sell the movie? I mean, like, I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but man, did you really drop the ball on that one. But then again, this whole movie drops the ball on it because, you know, The Grinch was a big hit a couple of years ago, but then again, you had Ron Howard directing it, and at least that movie looked like a movie. This, not so much. The Cat in the Hat, of course, do I really need to tell you what the story is? You have Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat, and Dakota Fanning starring as Sally, Spencer Breslin as Conrad, these two kids who are stuck at home during a rainstorm. And of course, the Cat in the Hat comes in and says, hey, let's have some fun. At least in the original story. And this one, it's, let's have some fun and also be incredibly obnoxious because I'm Mike Myers. And that's exactly what this whole movie is. This is a film that is notoriously bad for many, many reasons. I said this was one of the worst movies ever made, and you don't have to take my word for it, because Dr. Seuss's wife himself even thought that, because she said no more live-action adaptations of Dr. Seuss's work need to be made for this, and because of that, they canceled the sequel to this, because this did make money, not a lot, especially compared to The Grinch, but you know, I have this tied up with Dr. Seuss's The Lorax as two of the worst movies I have ever seen, because I hate the Lorax movie so much. It just felt like a mass misrepresentation of what that story was about with the Lorax. But of the two that are the biggest insult, it's easily the Cat in the Hat. Let's take the most iconic character Dr. Seuss has in his library outside of the Grinch and just turn him into an egotistical jackass. I mean, yeah, Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat could have made for good casting, but then again, the last movie he did was Austin Powers and Goldmember, and that shtick was getting old really fast, so yeah, we can go ahead and scratch that out. The casting in this just seems forced and phoned in. I mean, this is a movie that has two top young kid talents. We've seen them in movies earlier this year. Dakota Fanning, Spencer Breslin, the year before with the Santa Claus 2. They really do not work in this so whatsoever. They're the typical bland, forgettable, trying to be relevant kids of the 90s and early 2000s that just don't act like normal kids. Kelly Preston as the mother is completely underused here. Alec Baldwin's just a bland, forgettable bad guy. It takes a lot to make Alec Baldwin look like a terrible actor, and this movie certainly does just that. But and not only that, it's just filler. It's some of the worst filler I've ever seen. And this movie is just under an hour and a half, 82 minutes long. And yet, it still cannot find stuff to do with this character whatsoever when it's not taking from the source material. Like The Grinch has its flaws, especially with the runtime, and you could take a huge chunk of it out, and the movie still would have been, and the movie could have worked much better than it did. But you got more enjoyment out of The Grinch because of what Jim Carrey was bringing to the table, because everything looked like it was there. That's how bad this pilot is, people. And it's just a complete misfire on everything Seuss's material stood for. Hey, there's a pointless party scene where Paris Hilton shows up for a cameo because she was a thing back then. Yeah, way to date stamp this movie before it's even out of theaters. How about one more? There's another scene where the Cat in the Hat is promoting Universal Studios and even does a ka-ching during the key part of the final act. It's like the people who made this movie just didn't give a fuck whatsoever. And it also doesn't help that the talent is there. Mike Myers can be funny. He's not funny here. But not only that, Alec Berg wrote this. That's a name you might not be familiar with, but he wrote for Seinfeld. He wrote for Silicon Valley. David Mandel, the guy who ran Veep, also worked for Seinfeld. Jeff Schaffer, you guessed it, wrote for Seinfeld and later created The League. You've got three writers from one of the greatest comedies of all time, and you don't get a good script out of it? Really? It also doesn't help that the movie's directed by Bo Welsh, a well-known production designer. He's done a lot of stuff for Beetlejuice, Ghostbusters 2, Batman Returns, the Men in Black movies. It was his first movie as a feature film director, and unfortunately, it's his only film as a director, because as great as this guy is as a production designer, the guy cannot direct to save his life. There are literally scenes where you could see miscues and things about to happen. I never forget this, towards the end of the movie, where you have Conrad and Sally running back to the house, and Alec Baldwin's character is supposed to pop out and surprise the kids as they reach the house. But if you look as they're running, you literally see Baldwin's legs. They don't even hide it. That's how lazy this movie is. This movie doesn't even take the time to digitize Alec Baldwin's legs out of the movie. It's just, it boggles the mind that this movie got made and actually came out the way it did, because my God, this is the worst possible thing you could do with this character alone. And let's talk about the CG effects too. They're terrible. That fish there, horrible, even though he's another waste of talent with Sean Hayes. And you don't even get to see how he gets turned into the cartoon fish. Just kind of happens out of nowhere. And it's just, like, here's the thing. Dr. Seuss films should be timeless movies, like how Pixar does their films, for the most part. But these are books that we've grown up with kids, and the appeal of kids these days has gone way downhill in where they were when we were growing up. I mean, these books were made in a much different time period than they were today. They have got to stop throwing in pop culture references in Dr. Seuss movies and make them more timeless films. Even a movie like The Grinch, which I actually did like, the Benedict Cumberbatch one, has pop culture references in there. But you know what? Here's the thing. I don't like them in that. I don't like that they're in that movie, but at least they're placed in there where it doesn't feel like it's overstaying its welcome. I would like it if I didn't have to have these Dr. Seuss movies be that way, but you know what? I'm not running the studios, unfortunately. And worst of all, these are Dr. Seuss films that go completely against everything the books are supposed to go for. The Lorax, promoting Mazda cars, which are basically a hypocrisy of what the movie's about. The Cat in the Hat had numerous marketing campaigns for this film that just felt like they were so out of place and just so out of touch of what Dr. Seuss's works are supposed to be. These are supposed to be entertaining stories for kids as well as adults and teach life lessons. They're not supposed to be raunchy, over-the-top, and hypocritical PG-rated failures of movies. At least with Horton Hears a Who, which was the next one after this, they got the style right. They got the idea of, you know, what the books are supposed to be about. Another one had pop culture references, but you know what? Still made for an entertaining movie. It says something when The Grinch, both the Grinch movies and Horton Hears a Who are the far superior Dr. Seuss adaptations. Those are not perfect movies, but you know what? They do a better job of capturing the spirit of Dr. Seuss's stories than Cat in the Hat and the Lorax did. But bottom line, I mean, what more can I say? The Cat in the Hat is just an abomination on so many levels, and just the end of the road for Mike Myers' goodwill, because after this, his career went downhill. Okay, with the exception of the Shrek movies, but we'll get to those a little bit later, but you get what I mean here. Like, just not a very good movie. A bad movie. One of my top 3 worst movies of all time, easily. So that is The Cat in the Hat. Let's go ahead and turn the tide here with our next movie, and that is Halle Berry and Robert Downey Jr. in the horror thriller Gothika.
Miranda Gray is an expert at knowing what is sane.
Are you okay?
Until she found herself on the other side.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's a girl. This is the girl that I saw.
Is it possible? She died 4 years ago.
You trust me?
You can't trust somebody when they think you're crazy.
Gothika, rated R. Starts Friday, November 24th.
And just when you think that trailer isn't bad enough, you should see what the international trailer for this movie looked like. And, needless to say, it's pretty much nightmare fuel. I know it's also in 187.2 with Samuel L. Jackson, but that was my first time hearing it in this trailer. It's one of my favorite songs, and it's kind of hard not to see why. I can't play it in full, obviously, because of copyrights. But this is Gothika, which is the film following Halle Berry as a psychiatrist who finds herself incarcerated in the penitentiary where she works at, accused of brutally murdering her own husband. This is actually the 4th film produced by Dark Castle Entertainment, but this was notably the first one to feature some pretty high-profile stars involved. And the film did very well with the general public overall. It was a huge hit financially. Critically, not so much, but, you know, I thought it was alright. I definitely like the style of it. I think it has a really creepy vibe to it. Yeah, the story is very much a generic storyline we've seen done to death. But the performances overall are very good. Halle Berry's really good in the film. Robert Downey Jr., Charles S. Dutton, Penelope Cruz, I think, is really good. And yeah, the creep factor definitely is there. The thing about these Dark Castle movies, they may not be great films overall, but they have those little edges to them that give them a chance to really stand out on their own. I think this is one of the last ones that really did it the best. And I thought it was really good. I mean, I don't have much more to say about it. I thought it was actually pretty good. Enjoy it while it lasts, because after this, it's just downhill from there for Dark Castle Entertainment, because they follow this up with House of Wax, which I don't think I need to tell you how bad that is, but we'll get to that one eventually. But overall, I did really like Gothica. I thought it was actually pretty good, despite what people said about it, critics said. But let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, probably the best film overall of the week, and that is 21 Grams. Directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, who of course gave us Babel, Birdman, The Revenant, just a ton of great movies. This is actually the second part of his trilogy of death, with the first one being Ameros Perros, and Babel is supposed to be the last one. The plot is about the consequences of a tragic hit-and-run accident. Sean Penn plays a critically injured mathematician, Naomi Watts plays a grief-stricken mother, and Benicio del Toro plays a born-again Christian ex-convict whose faith is sorely tested in the aftermath of the incident. The three main characters each have past, present, and future story threads, which are shown as nonlinear fragments that punctuate elements of the overall story, all imminently coming towards each other and coalescing as the story progresses. And really, there's not much more you can say about the movie that hasn't already been said. It's just a really intense psychological thriller with a strong cast. It also includes Melissa Leo and Charlotte Gainsbourg. It's just everything you can expect from a really good director like Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu. I mean, this is a guy that knows what he's doing. The cinematography is great. The drama is very good here. The acting is top-notch. I actually prefer Sean Penn in this than I did in Mystic River, even though I thought it was all right in Mystic River, but I thought his performance in here was great. But this was a film that got several nominations for Naomi Watts and Benicio del Toro at the Oscars. And, yeah, it's just a really solid film. A film I thought was very good. It just has a lot of elements to it that I thought were really intense. And like I said, it's what Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu does so well. He's proved it with many movies. This is the first one that many people saw with him as like, hey, this guy's actually pretty damn good. And, yeah, not much more I could say about this one. 21 Grams is a fantastic film. I recommend checking it out.
This is the ancestral mansion of the Gracie family. It's a real fixer-upper. With a Victorian ballroom, secret passageways, spacious grounds with room for the whole family, and a mystery that has cursed the house for over 100 years. But no one told the Evers family.
Honey, you know they have dead people in the backyard.
Stay on the ground. Can I stay on the ground, please?
Dark spirits from the grave, come forth.
Don't you make no dark spirits come out while I'm sitting there. Wait till I leave before the dark spirits come out.
The Haunted Mansion.
If that isn't Kelsey Grammer, that's a hell of a good impression. I swear that's him, but I don't know. It sounds like him, but you hear him in the trailer there, maybe. But this is the third, like I said, the third feature film adaptation based off of a theme park attraction from Disney World. First one being the Country Bears, with the bigger one being the Pirates of the Caribbean, which left a lot of high anticipation for this one because, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean was an unexpected hit. Everyone thought it was going to do the same thing with this movie, and not so much. I mean, it wasn't a flop by any means necessary. It did make money, but it was not a hit critically, and eventually led to a reboot that is slightly better than this one, but even then, it's not that great. But in general, I mean, there's so much potential with the storyline here that you could do, but these movies haven't really worked with the film's advantages that they could take with the storyline here. And I think this one does it worse than the 2023 one, but that's just my personal take on it. You have Eddie Murphy playing a realtor who, along with his family, becomes trapped in the haunted mansion. And, of course, they come across all these different characters, including Terrence Stamp as the butler, Wallace Shawn as part of the coach's horseman. Marsha Thompson plays his wife. Jennifer Tilly plays Madame Leota in this. And there are brief flashes of promise in here. There are moments in here that I did legitimately enjoy. Like, I like the production of this movie. Looks pretty damn good. I mean, it looks the set designs are very good. Sometimes you get a good laugh here and there from Eddie Murphy, but even then, it's not really enough for me to say that it's a good movie by any means. I'll give the 2023 version this. There were more things about that one I remember about it, mostly from the visual aspect of it and from the storytelling development. I mean, I like those characters a lot more because they're played by great actors in general. I mean, you've got, in that one you had Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Tiffany Haddish, Rosario Dawson, Jamie Lee Curtis, and even Jared Leto as the Hatbox Ghost was kind of cool to watch. But I mean, this year they were trying, but it just couldn't really get past those moments where you felt like there should have been so much more to it. I mean, they got the pieces here and there, but it just didn't really feel like they expanded on the story of the Haunted Mansion. At least with the 2023 version, they did things with that one. I forgot Lakeith Stanfield was also in there too. He was one of the main guys in there, but in that movie they were at least trying, and I thought they succeeded more with expanding the story. Here it's just, hey, here's these little flashes here and there. Like, here's the Hatbox Ghost. Here's the statues that sing to you. Like, here's all the things from the ride, and they don't really do anything of value with him. Like, there's not really much of a story given there, except for one that's pretty generic overall, and it just doesn't have that element that Pirates of the Caribbean had, where they have good talent involved, a better script involved, really, to make it work on its own. But here, it's not that they don't have the talent there. I probably should take that back. Rob Minkoff, who directed Stuart Little before this, of course he directed The Lion King. He's a good director, and this is written by David Birnbaum, who had a hit earlier in the month with Elf, which was a proof that was a much bigger success than anyone expected it to. But here, I don't know. The pieces just were there, but there's nothing there to really make this one stand out over a generic storyline here. Of all the three films based off the theme park attractions we've had up to this point, this is easily the weakest one of the bunch here. The Country Bears was at least a so bad it's good type of movie because of things like Christopher Walken's performance. And Pirates of the Caribbean really was something that really took a lot of people by surprise when it came out. With this, you thought that they were heading in the right direction, and the pieces just weren't there to make it a film that should work on its own. Like, even Eddie Murphy, as much as I thought he had some good moments here and there, he feels kind of wasted in this particular film. I mean, he doesn't really have a whole lot to do in this film except to just be the straight man in this crazy world that he's found himself in with his family. And, like, there's a subplot with his wife looking like somebody from the past, and it doesn't really go anywhere that you don't think it's going to go already. And it just, I don't know. The film itself just really was a major letdown. Like I said, if I had to choose between this and the 2023 version, the 2023 version would win, but just barely, though. Not much more to say about that one. That's The Haunted Mansion. So let's go ahead and move to what I think is probably the best movie of the entire weekend, and certainly not what you think it would be. It's the third Christmas classic of 2003, but this time for the adults. Billy Bob Thornton starring in Bad Santa.
Oh, no. The funniest comedy of the year.
What's up, Mark? Practicing, digging in.
Bad Santa is achingly funny.
That's so good doing you. Mention these lips on your wife.
Astonishingly irreverent.
Last night.
The man's a sexual being. It's a must-see film for anyone who loves to laugh.
Love blonde women. What about that, John?
Bad Santa. Now play.
Who would have thought that this would be the last movie John Ritter would ever be involved in? Because unfortunately he passed away 2 months before this movie came out, and it certainly was tragic, especially someone like me who was watching 8 Simple Rules back in the day, and to find out that the father is no longer with them and they decided to continue on. It was an interesting time for that, but he's in this movie too, but we'll get to him in just a moment. This is Bad Santa, where you have Billy Bob Thornton, who plays a convicted con man who leads a miserable life. He drinks heavily and constantly embarrasses himself publicly. He only works once a year dressed as Santa, but then come Christmas Eve, he and his pint-sized helper dwarf, played by Tony Cox, stage elaborate robberies and take the department stores for what they've got. This time around, Willie gets distracted by large women, a bartender who's attracted to Santas, played by Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls, and a kid who's convinced he's the real deal, played by Brett Kelly. However, Marcus must once again put up with Willie's heavy drinking and series of incidences that consistently shoots him in the foot. Will Willie and Marcus make it to next Christmas, or will this be the year the dynamic duo finally faces justice? And yeah, it's about as raunchy as you can get. I mean, the title Bad Santa is very much worthy of this movie, and it's friggin' awesome, man. I love this movie so much. This is directed by Terry Zwigoff, who gave us films like Crumb and Ghost World, and it's actually a production of the Coen brothers, who actually wrote the story for this, even though they were uncredited for it. But you definitely couldn't tell by the fact that they were in this, that they were involved in this, honestly. But like I said, this movie's pretty friggin' amazing, man. I love this movie so much. It is so dark. It is so raunchy. This is the definition of how to make a good raunchy comedy, and a raunchy holiday comedy, too, which seems like it's an impossible task to do, but man, does this movie pull off so well. Billy Bob Thornton is just such an asshole in this movie. You can't help but love him, because he's making me laugh so hard. In the beginning, when you see him in, I think in Hawaii, and he's completely going, he's like going insane, like he's throwing, like he's getting behind the bar. The bartender's just like, "Hey, I thought I told you to get off in there." And he's just swearing at him, throwing stuff all over the place. Like when he wakes up in the morning from he hears Christmas music. He's like so mad that he throws he's like throwing not only the alarm clock, but he's throwing all these bottles everywhere. Like you kind of feel like you should hate this guy, but at the same time, you kind of feel like you would be in that same pathway too, if you've been doing that job for so long. And I think as a kid, it didn't really hit me, but as an adult, I think a lot of people can relate to Billy Bob Thornton's situation in this. Like, he hates the holidays so much and has these problems, but you know what? You just got to go with it, and until you finally reach your breaking point. And this film definitely was his breaking point, but this moment in time was his breaking point. But God, Billy Bob Thornton is so funny in this movie, man. Like, he punches kids in this movie. Like, not just punches them, beats the hell out of them. And it's just like, you know, I freaking love this movie, man. This is my type of humor. Dark comedy, raunchy humor, a cast that filled with some great talents, like John Ritter, like I said, Bernie Mac, another late actor in here, like I said, Brett Kelly, Lauren Graham, Lauren Tom from King of the Hill and Futurama, Tony Cox. Just phenomenal cast, phenomenal writing, brilliant direction, just funny stuff, and like, it's just such a great movie, man. I love it so much. Just a phenomenal film. What more can I say? I'll say this: avoid the sequel. Came out 13 years after this. Completely was a pointless sequel. Didn't have any of the same amount of raunchy humor that the first film had that made it work, and it was just a waste of time all around. Didn't even have the same people behind it, so that's already another strike against the film. But avoid Bad Santa 2. Watch Bad Santa 1, though. It's a classic film. What more can I say about it? So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is Ron Howard's The Missing with Tommy Lee Jones and Cate Blanchett. So in 19th century New Mexico, you have a father played by Tommy Lee Jones who comes back home hoping to reconcile with his adult daughter, Maggie, played by Cate Blanchett. Maggie's daughter is kidnapped, forcing father and a strange daughter to work together to get her back. This is one of the many modern westerns we're getting at the time. Another one was Open Range. This one's definitely not as good as Open Range, and at times it can be a little bit too pretentious for its own good, but there are definitely some aspects to it that are very interesting, to say the least. There are things about it that I would say that are very good about it. Like, I do like the little bit of the darker edge to it. Like, it feels like a dark, grisly western, which is something that we don't usually get very often. But it features two solid performances by Tommy Lee Jones and Cate Blanchett. You also have Emma Rachel Wood in here. Aaron Eckhart's also in the film as well. And you know, for a film like this, for people, you would think that they would get so much wrong here that the Native Americans probably would get upset about this, but no, it turns out this was well received. by Native American populations who praised it for its Apache dialect, saying that it was well-spoken and could be understood by most Chiricahua-speaking adults. You know, a lot of the actors had to learn to speak dialogue, and they would spend hours beforehand making sure that they got it right, and you gotta give it credit for that. And I mean, it's not that it's a badly made film, it feels like a film that's just really trying too hard to be the next Unforgiven or be the next Open Range, this great Western, and it just doesn't quite make that mark. There are times when it definitely has the edges to do that, and like I said, it's not a bad movie per se. It's a very nicely put film, but it does run way too long, and it's, like I said, at times it can seem very pretentious and feel like they're just trying to get the message off of there, but it's just a fine film for what it is. Like, it's nothing too spectacular. Not a bad movie, but not a great movie either. Not one I would say you should check out. But if you want to see some Ron Howard stuff, it's not one of his worst movies he's ever made. I mean, it's a competently made film. I just wish it wasn't as long as it was, and didn't feel like it was trying to stick its own head up its own ass. But then again, that's just my opinion on that one. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie here, which is the Richard Donner directed Timeline.
Built a 3D fax machine. Well, we figured out how to transmit an object in 1357. You actually made it work?
We got documents from my father's writing on it. We found his glasses. What are you trying to tell us? He faxed it back to the 14th century?
Fact is, your father is in the 14th century. We need you to help us getting back. Think of it as the ultimate field trip.
So you're saying they could be stuck there forever? We got 650 years of knowledge on these guys. If we put our heads together, we should get out of here in 20 minutes.
Yes, but if it only took you 20 minutes, then we wouldn't have a movie. We wouldn't have this movie that's over almost 2 hours long. So, obviously, it's not going to take 20 minutes for you to go find this the dad in here. But this is Timeline. This is directed, like I said, by Richard Donner, based off of Michael Crichton's book of the same name. It follows a team of present-day archaeologists and historical students who are sent back in time into medieval France to rescue their professor from the middle of a battle. And you see a cast that includes Paul Walker, Francis O'Connor, Gerard Butler, Billy Connolly, David Thewlis, Anna Friel. And, I mean, there's a good concept here, just not the right execution in general here. And like I said, it's a film that pretty much follows where you think it's going to go. Like, you see these little pieces here and there that you've seen in other movies before, and it just doesn't feel like they go where they should go with it. And it just kind of feels like a ripoff of, it feels like a ripoff of Stargate, which, you know, that it definitely has those elements to it. Some of the overacting there, like that scene where they're all going back in time and they just have these faces where they're closing their eyes and they're holding their mouths over, like, ah, like it's really hurting them and all that. It's just like, I felt like Richard Donner was trying to tell him, no, it's got to feel like it's hurting you when you do that. It's just like, no, it just comes off as really, really stupid when it's all said and done. But you know, like that type of stuff, like just, I don't know. Maybe that's just me thinking about that, but I don't know. The movie itself just really didn't really do it for me. The film just kind of feels like they're trying too hard to make something unique and interesting with it. And it's an ambitious film in general, and I feel like there could be a good film here, but it needed better writers in general to really make it stand out on its own. And it just doesn't quite really do that here. Plus, you know, you got Michael Crichton working with Richard Donner, two very different, brilliant minds, and you would think that there would be a much better film involved here, but not so much here. So that's Timeline. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is William H. Macy, Maria Bello, and Alec Baldwin starring in The Cooler.
To experience love shock. What is it to love? The year's most improbable love story.
You are out of his life.
I don't think I can do that.
This is our time. This is you and me.
William H. Macy, you look in the mirror. You don't like what you see? Look in my eyes. I am the only mirror you're ever gonna need. Maria Bello.
He blindsided me. I love you.
And Alec Baldwin.
The best cooler there ever was, and I need him back.
He ain't never coming back.
That is a dead man talking.
Quick reprieve for Alec Baldwin following last week's The Cat in the Hat, a film that actually got him this one actually got him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. And it's pretty good in the movie, and you have the true story of a Greek punter, Nick Pagelis, played by William H. Macy, following a casino cruller whose mere presence at the gambling tables usually results in a streak of bad luck for the other players and people in his betting office. Then he provides lunch and light refreshments, and the occasional scotch. And directed by Wayne Kramer, who would later go on to direct Running Scared with Paul Walker, a criminally underrated film of his. And the film itself is just okay. I mean, the performances, I think, really do what carry it to a level where I would say it's worth checking out. William H. Macy and Maria Bello are very good. And you see why Alec Baldwin was nominated, because it shows, hey, Alec Baldwin can act, and this is a film that shows what he can do. You also have Paul Sorvino in here, Ron Livingston, Estella Warren, probably the best thing she's ever starred in, honestly. But the film itself, it's kind of like it's trying a little too hard to be kind of the next The Gambler or Casino or The Hustler, Color of Money, that type of a film. And yeah, it's cool to see Las Vegas as it is in this movie compared to what it is now, but at the same time, it's not really enough to say that it's a film that should be considered one of the best movies of the year. But I think the acting does elevate it a little bit more to the point where I would say it's worth checking out just for the performances alone. But other than that, for a one-time watch, I'd say it's fine, but I don't think you're going to really want to watch it again after the next time around. But who knows? Maybe you might. But with that said, that's the cooler. On to the last one we have here, and that is The Triplets of Belleville. What a great movie, man. Triplets of Belleville is directed by Sylvain Chomet, who has has a unique animation style to it. If you haven't seen the Triplets of Belleville, you have certainly seen his work when he's directed. He's directed a couple of couch acts for The Simpsons, actually. Most notably the one with set in his style, where you have Homer. We have everybody like looking like they're from France in general. Like you have Homer eating snails. Great couch gag in general, but this film just really shows you what this director is capable of doing. This is his magnum opus for sure. It's a film that has very little dialogue to it, and most of the narrative is conveyed through pantomime and song. You have the story of Madame Sousa, an elderly woman who goes on a quest to rescue her grandson, Champion, a Tour de France cyclist who has been kidnapped by the French Mafia for gambling purposes and taken to the city of Belleville, which is an amalgam of Paris, New York City, Montreal, and Quebec City. She's accompanied by Champion's Lloyd and a beast hound Bruno, and joined by the Triplets of Belleville, who are music hall singers from the 1930s where she meets in the city. And this actually got 2 nominations for the Oscars, including Best Animated Feature, as well as the song Belleville Rendezvous, which is a catchy-ass song in general. The movie itself is gorgeous to look at. It's a very unique animation style that feels very similar to other things, like you could see a little bit of Klasky Schuster in there if you watched a lot of Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys back in the day. A little pieces of that are in there, even though this director has nothing to do with those, but it's a very unique style, and it's something that just... I remember seeing it as a little kid, not really knowing what I was going in for, but when I came out of it, watching it... Excuse me. A little burp there. But after I got done watching it, I was just like, man, this is a really, really good movie with a lot of great style, a lot of great music, a lot of great ambition to it. The fact that it's mostly done through pantomime, like, I like these type of movies. I mean, Shaun the Sheep and Wallace and Gromit, I mean, some of the best pantomime used in animation ever. This is definitely right out there. It's a film that's just so well done, brilliantly animated, well executed. I can't recommend this one enough. The Triplets of Belleville. It's a must-watch indeed. Definitely check it out.